Do you want it to be on me or her?
Um, just kind of switch back and forth is cool with me.
Okay.
Hey, so this is my sister-in-law, Caitlin, and my first niece and my only niece, until a month from now, right, Caitlin? Second one on the way.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
baby
Another
Nor.
little girl,
Yeah,
sister.
a baby sister for Harper. Baby Nora's coming, end of March.
Yes.
Yes,
About like midway through March, like the 18th. So
a
we're
Pisces.
excited. Yeah, like a
Cute.
fat belly
Ooh,
situation.
yes.
So
Two of my best friends are Pisces, so I love that.
I think it'll be good.
Yeah, it's gonna be cute. Yeah, well, thank you. I just want to start
It'll
off
be
by saying
fun.
thank you so much for meeting with us. We have this awesome class at UW. It explores the intersects of disability with sexuality and gender and disability rights and justice and how it's looking moving forward and going into the future. And it's just really conversations like this go a really long way with in regards to all that. And it's just like I can't thank you enough for meeting with me and just being willing to have like an open conversation and just let me ask you a few questions about your experience so far. Um, and I was just kind of wondering how it's been. How are you doing? Like, how was the first like 6 months when you first started noticing signs?
So she just started kind of missing milestones, or like the worst thing that I feel like a lot of I joined a support network right away. So that's been really great. Like because of social media and like Facebook and Instagram, there's a lot of other parents that are sharing their stories. So because of the internet and like how, our social media presence and like our connections have like adapted through technology over the years, like it gives you a platform, it gives you a space to like meet and chat with others and share experiences or see experiences that can be like really comforting because you're like, okay, like my child can get to, this place where they're feeling more successful, feeling more fulfilled in life. Like it's not the end, like having a diagnosis, like, for a mental disability essentially, which is hard for
Absolutely.
me even to say because like I know she's not like stunted in any way. She's just on the autism spectrum, which is needs to be more normalized. So I think like having a lot of social media like influencers like that are autistic talking about their experience, like especially like these young adolescents and like adults like that have like lived through their whole life like in childhood like at a different time too when the resources were more limited, and now we have a ton of resources, so it's interesting to see like their perspective and like kind of makes me feel really hopeful for Harper's future. So
Yeah,
I'm
thank you. That's
I'm a little bit
absolutely.
more accepting of it. Like it was hard at first to like when you feel like alone and isolated, but you just have to be proactive, have to use your community resources, like look to like our great online resources, like not just checking out information, but like really like sharing and like one-on-one experiences with like a community. So that's been like hugely important for me, like
Yeah.
finding a network of other parents that are going through the same thing because the spectrum is so diverse. Like everyone's going to be very different in how they adapt and like show different like signs. Like she has a lot of stims, which is like different like physical or like mostly for her it's physical like manifestations or like manipulations of her body to like calm herself down and make herself feel like more regulated and like adapt to the situation, like maybe like express happiness or even like fend off like feelings of anxiety. So
Totally.
just like learning like stuff like that, like what each child or what their
Yeah.
needs are going to be to be met, but like being okay with it too. Like I don't get embarrassed going out in public. Like I told myself from day one, like if other people aren't going to understand, like, and maybe they might look at her in a certain way, like it's going to be, I just kind of like feel like it's not my responsibility, but I will give like a gentle like kind of like teaching moment with these people, be like, yeah, my daughter's on the spectrum, like she also has sensory modulation disorder, this is what it means, and this is maybe what you're seeing and what it looks like and how she's experiencing seems maybe different from like some of these completely normal expression of joy for her. So, like, we're good over here, just kind of like letting them be like, oh, okay, like, and understanding it more, because maybe that's going to get them to like kind of go outside their bubble and like maybe look something up and be like, okay, like maybe there's other children in my family or community that might be, showing different signs of being on the spectrum.
And you could even like go into thinking it could be part of a public curriculum more so than it already is. And just educating, and like I'm getting all this education and I hadn't experienced in my public school upbringing.
Yeah, like I didn't have a lot of experience with autism at all before. Like I had a little bit because I did used to work for an organization in Washington that did help families out with autistic children, and I was a nanny for a few autistic kids, but they were a lot older and they had different, they expressed things differently.
Awesome.
Jake and I are just like trying to embrace the situation and just like, I love there's all these like kind of like positive groups and stuff, like, and different memes and things and like shirts and like things to create awareness, is like things that say like awesomely autistic or something like that. And I love like that kind of like branding of like, what it is to be neurotypical, that it's not bad. It's not like,
it's like rewriting a stigma,
disorder, but it's not like something that needs to be like cured.
Totally.
Like we need to just adapt as a society that there's a lot of different individuals in the society, whether neurotypical or not, or whatever.
Totally. Yeah, that's actually a perfect segue, because you introduced me to that pamphlet from the Autistic Women's and Non-Binary Network. That's actually what I'm doing my project about. They're amazing. I've been watching their webinars. They do monthly webinars with guest speakers, and they're always just putting their resources and so much time and effort into the community, and even not into the community, and just getting people aware of the great work that the community does. So I wanted to thank you for showing me that, because that's what led me to do more research on them, and I've just really loved what I've discovered. And I was just kind of, other than them, I'm just kind of curious what like doctors provided right off the bat in terms of medical advice and like where to go. And
this is really like encouraging for me, because like my regular pediatrician was like on my side from day one, essentially. Like she, before we even were discussing autism and the sensory kind of related issues, she was having some other like gross motor delays and other things like that, where she was already requiring like some kind of early intervention. And where we're in the state of Utah, like surprisingly, they have a lot of access to these resources. So we immediately were able to get her into an early intervention program when she was 6 months old for like her, because she wasn't meeting those motor skill milestones, like the crawling and the walking and even like the sitting up or rolling, which is important to know, because a lot of kids that end up being on the spectrum, like they do have some of these issues early on too. And so we were linked with an OT, a PT, and a behavioral therapist right away. So like she's been working with someone since 6 months old, which is really good. And then we kind of checked things out again. They use like a basic kind of like test to score like where you'd be at for your risk of like possibly being on the spectrum. Like, so, where the child's at, like depending on their age. And she was scoring really low on it, and she even scored really low on it at 18 months. But the doctor really listened to my concerns. Like she even kind of saw a little bit about at her 18-month appointment, and saw a need to like get her like an expedited like referral to the UDAC, which is like the University of Utah's like developmental assessment centers. So where they test for things like autism, where they test for things like, other type of speech delay related things, or sensory related things, or, anything that has to do with behavioral developmental issues.
Gotcha.
So we had to wait. That's the only thing, is there's so many children being diagnosed. There's like over 200,000 children being diagnosed every year. So the wait list, that's the hardest part, but the care providers and like their staff and support team are so nice. Like they're like, hey, here's a line that you can call us at any time if you have questions in the meantime. Like here's like the waiting list, like cancellation list that we can get you on. So like everyone's just been really supportive and like trying to help us navigate, you know, through the process of getting like a diagnosis to like what happens next. So now that we have a diagnosis, it took a couple months for us to get it, and then now that we have it, we're being connected to like in-clinic therapies. So it's been really good, and they're very thorough. Like they don't want to like misdiagnose, or they don't want to miss something. So like I feel like just based off of like personal experience too, like where I've seen like, you know, family members when I was a child like having to be, you know, diagnosed with like what they would just call a learning delay or a learning disability. Like they didn't really have like different names or anything for it. It was just like blanket terms. Like they'd be like, oh, well, you're this or you're that. Like, and nothing really happened from it. There was no like actual intervention to make the child like have an easier time in school or like maintain a certain quality of life. Essentially, it was just kind of like, okay, well, you know, you're on your own, you can explore medication. Like that's not how it is now. It's like, okay, like therapy and intervention is number one. Like if we have to explore medications, we'll kind of move into that space like cautiously, because the goal isn't to alter their thinking and it's not to recreate them in a typical person's image. It's to like allow them the space to grow and understand what's happening internally with them and to adapt to their surroundings in that way, like in a positive way. And also for parents to understand, like, yes, like your child has these set of needs and, you know, we really want to develop them as an individual. It's like not a bad thing. So
Totally.
I think it's just turning into a positive situation, a positive experience, and like, you know, just being like, hey, there are some risks that, you know, medically, like that you might want to look out for. Like a lot, like some children develop like seizure disorders or anything like more seriously medically.
Sure.
You know,
that's probably the hardest part is the worry like about health concerns is probably like the biggest worry at this point. But going forward, you're feeling like really positive and optimistic towards the future because of the support you've gotten.
It's like very scary and a little bit isolating, but like if you really are just someone that wants to go out and utilize all these resources, it's not scary. So like, and I said, the social media aspect, like the clinical aspect, everyone's just been very supportive.
That's amazing.
I feel like it's like moving in a really good direction, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more like, you know, bigger movements for people that, you know, have disabilities, like to just kind of like move them into society in a more accepted kind of manner. So
for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I know like my teacher and like my peers at University of Washington are going to be like, it's going to be awesome for them to hear a perspective of a parent that's just recently a first-time mother in your experience. Honestly, it's really commendable, and I just like can't thank you enough for sharing. Is that her in the background playing?
What was that?
Is that her in the background playing?
Oh yeah, she's playing here. Let me show her.
Harper. Harper.
She might not look, but we're working on that.
Right.
Hey, what do you see?
Her room looks so cute. Look at the pink.
Yeah, she's very pink. We got her things everywhere. She's kind of just taking things out.
Yeah, and you've been so good with the motor skills activities.
And sensory. We've just been really trying to just embrace whatever she kind of enjoys. Like, the best thing I learned, though, is from her therapist recently is when you're playing, like, don't always try to make it a teachable moment, because with any child, typical or not, like, they don't want to be put on the spot all the time. It's like when they're this little, like, it should just be about building that connection.
Yeah, it could be like fluid and natural.
What we've been working on.
Yeah, just like a balance between the two.
Are you playing with your?
Oh, she's so cute. I love the pigtails.
Yeah, she's a little cutie.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, she's not like more involved.
Oh no, it's totally fine. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna end this video.